last for today press briefing. Viktor Pinchuk is the winner of the Metropolitan Andrey Sheptytsky Award for 2014, and today there will be the official ceremony of awarding tonight, and we will hear from Adrian Karatnycky, founder and co-director of the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter, Oleksa Petriv, Chief of Department of External Relations of UGCC, and the Chief Rabbi of Kyiv and Ukraine, Rabbi Bleich, who will join us later.
To invite our next speakers, Mr. Adrian Karatnycky, the founder and co-director of the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter, Beryl Rodal, who is the member of the board of the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter, and the Chief Rabbi of Kyiv and Ukraine, who will join us during this press conference just a few minutes later. Our honored speakers will brief us on tonight's ceremony. Viktor Pinchuk is a winner of the Metropolitan Andrey Sheptytsky Award for this year. Without any further ado, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Adrian Karatnycky. That is my colleague, Mr. Rodal, and we'll be joined by Rabbi Yaakov Bleich from the Jewish Confederation in Ukraine. I will start from some general information. We are awarding the medal and also Metropolitan Andrey Sheptytsky Award. The former head of Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, who in times of Holocaust saved more than 150 Jewish souls. He put them to different monasteries, to different religious communities, and based on his heroic and charitable actions, we jointly with the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter, that is our American international NGO, together with the Jewish Confederation of Ukraine, we have organized this annual award. And the winner of this year is Viktor Pinchuk for his noble activities in direction of assisting development of Ukrainian Jewish community on the territory of Ukraine, for his support of different international events, of his support of documentaries which talk about the tragedy of Holocaust, and for his work in promoting and integrating Ukraine to the external world via Yalta European Strategy Conference. We understand that Ukraine now lives in very difficult circumstances, and we believe that it's worth use this event not just to mark the philanthropic activities of Mr. Pinchuk, but to invite to Ukraine several leading lobbyists of Ukrainian interests in the outside world, so that they also participate in our event, and so that they basically upgrade their knowledge of what's happening here. We'll have some meetings with the journalists, economists, analysts, and the officials, and we invited Bernard-Henri Lévy. He will be here today and tomorrow. Also, Alexander Kvasniewski and Professor Timothy Snyder. They all known to you. From time to time, they speak and talk to Ukrainian media, and we believe this will be a good chance to combine this event so that these tribunes of interest so that they can basically understand more about what's happening in the Ukrainian East. I will give the floor to Mr. Rodal, and he will be speaking in English, and I will request him to explain why we have engaged ourselves around disseminating, promoting in Ukraine, all over the world, of that knowledge about this figure of Andrey Sheptytsky and about what he has done for Ukraine and Jewish people, and about his noble actions when he was protecting, saving Jewish people.
Why should we have chosen to build a program and a campaign around Sheptytsky, and sort of the broader purpose of what we have done and how we have done it, and why, the context of the award.
Dobry din. Hello, I'm Beryl Rodal, as you heard. We believe that the world needs to hear more about, know more about Metropolitan Andrey Sheptytsky as one of the great figures of a difficult century. He was Metropolitan of the Church and the Metropolitan of Galicia for almost half the century. He died in 1944. We believe he's a symbol of how you go beyond the hand that nature has dealt you, how you go beyond your ethnic group, and how you reach out to embrace co-citizens, even if they're not of your faith or kin, in the interests of human rights as mankind's highest calling. In April 2012, well, the interesting thing about the Sheptytsky, and that's how the story began, is in some conversations about who to blame for this or that disaster of the 20th century, well, it's not very productive. Much more productive is to agree on whom we can all celebrate as a great figure. And the name Sheptytsky led the rest. Now, we brought together, the UJE invited the UCCRO, the Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations, which is a unique body. It's not an interfaith body. It's Ukraine's principal civil society advocacy group, favoring freedom of conscience, freedom of faith, etc. I don't think there's another organization like it in the world. So Ukrainians have something to be proud of here in this respect. So we brought together all the faith leaders, all the principal leaders of Ukraine. They came to Canada and the United States. There was a marvelous ceremony in the House of Commons of Canada. Sheptytsky was recognized in a special resolution of the Parliament of Canada to unanimous approval, massive applause, ovations. And this is the first time Metropolitan Sheptytsky has been so recognized by a political body anywhere. In October 2013, the Anti-Defamation League, a leading global Jewish body led by Abe Foxman, recognized Metropolitan Sheptytsky again, the first time there's been such recognition by a Jewish community body, and Abe Foxman is one of the recognized international leaders, and they awarded the Jan Karski Courage to Care Award to Sheptytsky. To further advance not only the model and legacy of Sheptytsky as one worthy of emulation, we've created the Sheptytsky Award, which it would go to an individual whose sustained work and commitment celebrates, advances closeness between Jews and Ukrainians. It's a diaspora matter, it's Ukraine itself, Israel, we bring them all together. And Sheptytsky here is a unifying figure. Victor Pinchuk is the first honoree of the Sheptytsky Medal as in its present form, which is a joint venture of the Jewish Confederation of Ukraine, led by Rabbi Bleich, whom you'll hear in a moment, and UJE, the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter. James Temerty, who's actually the chair of UJE and its founder, was honored in the earlier version of the Sheptytsky Medal in Kyiv, as a matter of fact, over a year ago. So we're making progress, and we're hoping that this will be recognized as an important international award.
Would you want to say something about Yad Vashem?
I should say that Avner Shalev, who was the head of Yad Vashem, which is a principal organization and the principal organization that has to do with memorializing the victims of the Shoah, well, Sheptytsky is not considered, quote, one of the righteous amongst the nations, despite the fact that Yad Vashem will tell you that politics has nothing to do with any of this. Someone who saves one life is as if he saved the whole world, and that is what Yad Vashem recognizes. In fact, Sheptytsky is the most difficult and complex case that has faced Yad Vashem for years, and the director, Avner Shalev, has told me personally a number of times that Yad Vashem is mistaken, talking about his own organization, in not recognizing Sheptytsky for his deeds. But only recently, in the last month, Shalev, in a public speech, said, we're wrong. Yad Vashem is wrong not to recognize Sheptytsky. So we're hoping Sheptytsky remains righteous whether Yad Vashem recognizes him or not. That's the important thing. And more of the Jewish community are saying this themselves. We are hoping that Yad Vashem will find a way to do the right thing. We're hoping that tonight's event will be another step in this positive direction. Rabbi Bleich.
I want to say, as a transition, jak w такому вступі і в
to introduce the next speaker, the chief Rabbi of Kyiv and Ukraine, Rabbi Yaakov Bleich. I would like to say that Rabbi Bleich initiated this process of recognizing Metropolitan Sheptytsky. From his initiative, we started this campaign, information campaign, and this award campaign. And he is the innovator who gives another example of Ukrainian-Jewish cooperation. And I am happy to welcome him. He has just arrived.
We've already done a little bit about who is here and the award, but you might want to say something about how you got involved and a little bit about what will happen tonight.
Okay. Thanks. The history I think is very, very interesting. I can speak in Russian or Ukrainian, English, whatever. Ukrainian, дуже цікаво. Yeah, I'll speak in English. Yeah, I don't speak very fluently in Ukrainian, but I think that the history of this award is really, really interesting because it came about from a process of meetings between Jim Tamarty and myself, trying to find a way to bring together the Jewish community and the Ukrainian communities. Now, actually, I think that it's more important now than it has been ever, probably in the last 23 years, to point out these issues that bring together the Jewish community and the Ukrainian community, especially since there are forces from without that are trying to cause rift and to highlight the negative parts of history between Jewish communities and Ukrainian communities over the last 300 years, let's say. And my point has been, and it still is, that if over 300 years there were maybe 35 years that there were problems between Ukrainians and Jews, we have to highlight the 265 or 270 years of really positive relationships where Ukrainians and Jews live together. And I'll tell you an interesting story. It just happened to me on Saturday night. I was at a major conference of Jews in the United States, of Orthodox Jews, and they brought in a speaker, a famous very famous refusnik, Yosef Mendelevich. And in his speech, he said that he was in the Gulag. He said, and the ones that helped him the most were the Ukrainians. And these were his words, because the Ukrainians and the Jews got along, because the Ukrainians respected the Jews for what they had done in Israel, for having realized their national dreams. it made it easier for me in my speech the following morning when I was charged to speak about anti-Semitism in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and all I had to do was quote what Mendelevich said. I said, that it's true that the positive is so much stronger. And this was the idea that Jim came to me with, and we decided that the best thing would be to try and choose a positive model. And Metropolitan Andrey Sheptytsky is that positive model of someone who fought against, I would say, first of all, did whatever he can to fight against Nazism and fascism and murder in general, but also saved, actually, over 150 Jews. That was the idea. And the first step in this idea was we did this trip of the Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations, together with Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter, to Canada, and got the Canadian Parliament to unanimously recognize Sheptytsky as a righteous Gentile. And from there, the medal was born. And the medal, which I don't have with me, should have had it with me, but the medal actually has a picture of Sheptytsky on it, and it quotes from Psalms, "Who will stand for me against the wicked, and who will champion my cause against the evildoers?" So in other words, that's what we're trying to bring out, the point of what Sheptytsky has done, and that he should be a model for all of us for bringing together Ukrainian Jewish communities. And today's honoree is going to be Victor Pinchuk, someone who's actually living in Ukraine and has done a tremendous amount to bring together Ukrainians and Jews. Last year's awardee and our partner today is Jim Temerty and the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter. But Jim Temerty individually got it, and the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter is our partner today. But Jim Temerty also is someone who has spent a lot of time, energy, and effort to bring together Ukrainian Jewish communities. Again, what we're doing is we're not saying there weren't bad parts, but we're trying to point out the good. And we think that the good is the foundation that we should build on for the future.
I guess we're ready to take questions.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you so much, Rabbi. Thank you so much, Mr. Karatnycky and Mr. Rodal. Actually, I have a question. Who were the other nominees for this award? Did you consider any other figures? Honored figures for this award?
The decision is made by the boards of the Jewish Confederation and the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter, and we have simply this year we were well, first of all, I should explain that the first award did not involve the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter. It was an award of the Jewish Confederation, which was developed jointly with Metropolitan Sviatoslav Shevchuk and Rabbi Bleich. That was another collaboration, the agreement to host an award, and the first honoree was Jim Temerty, a Canadian philanthropist and businessman who is very active in these issues. And I don't know how the deliberations of the Jewish Confederation went, but we received notice that our colleague was being honored. This year, we sat down, both groups, and looked at, we wanted to honor someone on the territory of Ukraine, and we wanted to honor someone who sort of reflected the same kind of work that Mr. Temerty does, which is someone in the philanthropic sector who has been supporting a range of projects, initiatives, and so on. And naturally, when we looked upon the list, Mr. Pinchuk's name was an easy name to come to. In future years, we will be looking to Ukrainians of non-Jewish faith in Ukraine. We will be looking to leaders in Israel. We will be looking to leaders in the diasporas of both communities. And so we will sort of alternate. It's quite, I wouldn't want to say absolutely yin and yang, but roughly the idea is that we will alternate between a Jewish and a Gentile or a Christian and a Jewish honoree from year to year, once in Ukraine, once outside of the country. And I think that in that spirit, we will have internal deliberations, but so the answer is we had a framework, and within that framework, Mr. Pinchuk was a natural outcome of our sort of thought process and the dialogue between the two boards, and so it involved about 10 people in all, in Jewish Confederation leadership and our board, which is a small board of 5 people, Mr. Rodal and I, and Professor Maglochi, Robert Paul Maglochi, a very important historian, Wolf Moskovich, an Israeli philologist and academic, and Mr. Temerdy, and on the Jewish Confederation side, Rabbi Bleich and his team.
I have a question to Rabbi Bleich. The church plays a very important role in the times that Ukraine is living now when there is the war in eastern Ukraine. What is the role of the Jewish community in trying to bring different ethnicities together and to somehow help Ukraine in this very difficult times of this history?
Well, the organized Jewish community, first of all, has been supporting Ukraine from the very, very beginning, from the outset of the not only from the Maidan but before as well, to try and see to get Ukraine integrated into the Western world. We, as a Jewish community, I mean, I can say very, very clearly, we definitely feel that, and I've said this many times, what's good for Ukraine is good for the Jews of Ukraine, that it's good for Ukraine to be integrated in the Western world. We feel the Jewish community thrives, people live better in freedom. People live better when they have democracy. People live better when they have free choice. People make choices and they're able to grow. And that's why we supported Western integration throughout the years as a community. From the beginning of the Maidan, the organized Jewish community, there have been many, many members that participated in what went on in the Maidan. And what's happening now in eastern Ukraine is that basically it's very, very sad. The Jewish community, the rabbis, the leaders of the community have had to leave Lugansk and Donetsk. And the rabbi from Donetsk is here actually in Kyiv. And they built a gorgeous community out there. It was a very, very nice community. They've built buildings, synagogues, community centers, schools. Basically everything has come to a halt there. Jewish life is still there because there are many elderly Jews that can't run, they can't go away, they can't leave. But most of the community and the leadership of the community had to leave because it was too dangerous to be there. So basically what we have been doing now is, first of all, we've been trying to help whoever is there, especially the elderly and the infirm, but also trying to help the rest of the community that is in other places throughout Ukraine integrate in different cities. And it's very, 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 very hard. You're talking about the humanitarian crisis here. I think it's a tremendous, tremendous crisis that is unfortunately not getting out there. I don't think people understand because we're busy with the national crisis and the political crisis to look at the humanitarian crisis and to see people that everything that they own their entire lives just disappears. And I'm not only talking about Jews now, I'm talking about Ukrainians and anybody that's living in those parts. But we've been working very, very, very much with a lot of internally displaced persons throughout Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkov, Kyiv, Odessa, and Zhytomyr is where we have big concentrations. But we've been doing whatever we can to help, and we'll continue doing whatever we can.
And I would like to emphasize that we do understand that Russia has been conducting the campaign of disinformation, that there's a lot of anti-Semitism in Ukraine, and we have neo-fascists or Bandera supporters, and we are trying, and especially Rabbi Bleich, in the international community, he participates actively in the World Jewish Congress and big American communities and organizations, and we are trying to clearly inform. We understand that there are some problems, some unfortunate events, but in the global context, there's no problem of anti-Semitism in Ukraine, and our cooperation and our work. We are the members of Christian communities. We cooperate with our Jewish colleagues, and we do not have any big difference in understanding the processes, and we are trying to do a lot together. We share some letters, open letters to international community from Jewish leaders of Ukraine, where they explain the situation. We were publishing that in the leading American and European newspapers and magazines. We are trying in different ways to help. Probably there's an issue of internal crisis, and we are trying to cooperate and help and assist. But we are also conducting not propaganda, but information awareness campaigns.
That in many ways we feel we've been working very closely with the organized American Jewish community to counter these the propaganda that's coming out of Russia about anti-Semitism, fascism, etc., and everything else. And in many ways, we feel that we won that war to a great extent. We won the battle, maybe not the war, but there's a lot less of this anti-Semitism propaganda coming out of Russia today than there was at the beginning, right after the Maidan, etc. So we feel that the working together, the Ukrainian Jewish community along with the American Jewish community and the Ukrainian-Jewish Encounter and other partners, but everybody was coordinated. This wasn't done, everyone doing his own, the way the refugees are being cared for here. But the information, not war, but the truth. My mother used to tell us when we were kids, the truth will out. The truth will out, and the truth, bringing the truth and speaking forcefully and openly and fearlessly about what really is true definitely has gotten through to the Western press and to the Jewish community, to the organized Jewish community. I can tell you, organized Jewish community in the West. It's people know the truth today.
Коли чи в нас запитання? Будь ласка.
Questions. The memorial newsletter, how do you assess the actions of our government now? The new government, the government which isn't there, I believe that now there is a possibility for Ukraine. There is an opportunity to create the government which will be promoting Western values. We understand that from today to tomorrow we will not be able to do it so that it's good for everyone. But if we go step by step, if we are trying to build the society which is respected, which respects the truth, which will be tolerant to, which will not be tolerant to corruption. We need that to be started from the government. Everything should be great in the government, and then it will go down to the lower levels, because people have said what they wanted. They were shouting. I say that the God blessed Ukraine because we had an opportunity in 2004. I believe that we lost that opportunity. We will not say how and what, but now there is another chance, another opportunity. It's like a cat that has 9 lives, but the country usually doesn't have so many opportunities to start from the beginning and do as it should be done. And I believe that now there is a chance for them to do it the way it should be done. There are good people, people who can do it. There is a big support of the West to do it the way it should be done. And I once said that when the Soviet Union disintegrated, the God showed us the example. Yugoslavia, he said, if you behave bad, then you can look like Yugoslavia. For any country of the former Soviet Union to look like Yugoslavia, that was very easy to have. And this did not happen. We lived normally. We respected each other. The nationality, the religion did not matter. People respected each other. But I believe that today, when we have the chance to build normal country, I'm talking about Western values, the respect, democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience. But on the other hand, the God gives us an example, Russia. I've been talking a lot to people, to Jews who live in Russia. They say everything's great. But they say, yeah, everything's great, but we cannot think, we cannot speak, we cannot meet. If you don't need it, if you don't need the freedom of speech, okay, live there, live in China. But if a person wants to live normal life and think freely and speak freely, then Ukraine is a great country. Any other questions? Voice of America. You say that the truth reaches the world despite the Russian propaganda. But in Russia, they continue to say, and in the West, some people believe that Maidan had some anti-Semitist moods. What is the attitude of Jewish community to Euromaidan? How do you live under Bandera authorities? You can answer any letter, any language.
America, if the Russian propaganda is getting out too much, that means Voice of America is not doing a good job. Because, and I'm serious, I'm not joking, I'm serious, that I think that there has to be a concerted effort. You have to understand that the Jewish world, the Russian-speaking world, in Israel, in Europe, in the United States, are watching Russian television. They're not watching Oleksa Petriv. And I think that it would be important for the Western powers, Ukraine, the Baltics, and the United States to get together with the European Union and set up a channel, a Russian language channel that would go throughout the world telling people the truth. It can be a free channel. It doesn't have to be controlled by any powers that be. Just make it free. That's the best way news gets out, is when it's independent. And then we won't have any problems whatsoever. But I do come to Israel, to Europe, and to the United States and meet up with people that are, in my opinion, unfortunately getting their news from Russian language television. That's not true. I mean, personally, I can't even watch it because it makes me sick. I was once in a hotel in London and watched something, and I got sick from it. So I definitely think there's still a need to counter the propaganda. There's no question about it. But it's not getting, it's now still in the Russian language society, so to speak. When at the beginning of the Maidan, it was in the English language, and it was being carried by English language press, and thank God they stopped that. So I think that that's a great victory in the propaganda war. But I'm not saying that, you know, in English we say it ain't over until it's over. So it definitely is, you know, still a lot to be done out there, and I'm sure Adrian will have what to say in English.
I would like to comment. What is better for you? Any language, okay. I would like to say that I believe that the more transparent Ukraine becomes, the more there are discussions about openness of the government, of the society. This helps in overcoming the Russian disinformation, the participation of Jewish community and the Ukrainian-Jewish phenomenon. These are Ukrainian Jews who grew up in the times of independent Ukraine. That means that these are people of Jewish origin with different attitude to Ukraine, not like people who lived in different empires and structures. In Austro-Hungarian, Polish, Soviet empires, Russian Empire, and this process of genesis of Ukrainian Jewish, that helps a lot. There are probably problems with Russian-speaking Jews who get a lot of information from Russia, but I would say that English-speaking and Hebrew-speaking people get balanced information, objective, at a good level. And there are many Ukrainian Jews who, some of them immigrated to Israel. Like we have one graduate of Kyiv Megillah School, Kyiv Megillah University, she is the citizen of Ukraine, of Israel now, but she studied philology in Kyiv Megillah Academy, and she was impressed by all these events happening in Maidan. And there are many people who carry the values of Maidan and of New Ukraine in Israel and even in Jewish communities. So everything's balanced. Any other questions? If not, then...
So the right word about Ukraine. Thank you. Наш сьогоднішній робочий день.
The working day is over for today. Thank you.